is on love and understanding. So I wanted to read, as part of this discourse, one of my favorite passages from the Bible, a very well-known one. This is a passage on love, and it's 1 Corinthians is the book, and it's chapter 13. And it starts with verse 4. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not vaunt itself, does not puff itself up. Love does not behave unseemly. Love does not seek its own, is not easily provoked, and thinks no evil. Love does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never fails. So today's discourse on love and understanding actually comes at the perfect time. We're on the eve of Christ's birth, as we all know, and really the Christ story is a love story of God for humanity and all of his creation. As some, or maybe all of you know, the story of Christ's coming has to do with several things. It has to do with prophecy, has to do with humanity at the time crying out to God and praying to God, complaining to God, saying, look what's going on in our world. All of this anger and this strife and this killing and this death. You have no idea what it's like to be human. You have no idea what it's like to endure what we have to endure, to live with what we have to live with, to face what we have to face. So in addition to that, we also have the essentially misunderstanding of the 10 Commandments as given to Moses. So we have prophecy, we have the crying out to God, and we have this misunderstanding, misinterpretation, and misapplication of these 10 Commandments. So in response to all of this, God says, I am hearing your prayers to me, I am hearing your cries, I do understand what's going on. And as a showing of this, I'm going to give my only begotten Son to humanity. And there we start the birth of Christ. And this gift of love to humanity, to show them how to interpret the commandments of God, to show them how to fulfill prophecy, to show them how to live and ascend up the mountain. He did all of this knowing that when he sent his only begotten Son to humanity, some of humanity would take this gift and crucify the Son of God on the cross. And he sent his Son to do his work anyway. So we have this story of love, which is really what Christmas is about, the true meaning of Christmas. We have the commercial meaning of Christmas, where we buy a lot of gifts and spend a lot of money. Nothing wrong with gifts. I'm not disparaging that in any sense, but sometimes the true meaning of Christmas does get lost in the commercialization of Christmas. So we have this child given to humanity, given out of love. And really with any birth of a human, or birth of anything, birth of an idea, birth of an adventure, we have a new beginning. So this is the perfect time, really, to talk about love and understanding during today's service. So what is love? This is, I would say, an almost impossible term to describe. Um, if an alien came and you had to describe to them what love is, I would imagine for a lot of people it would be very difficult. It's like trying to describe God. You can describe God, you can give attributes of God, but God is always more than really what you can put into words. Is all, and that's verbal words or written words. God is beyond all of that. Love is really beyond anything that you can put verbally or down on paper. Um, but today we'll give our best effort really to describe some attributes of love, as opposed to giving a all-inclusive definition of what love is. For a lot of people, love has to do with romance and intimacy, and it's tied a lot in with Valentine's Day, and Hallmark loves that because they essentially created that holiday, and you buy all their cards and candies and what's not. Again, nothing wrong with Valentine's Day. That's just one part of what love is. Love is a unifying force as opposed to a force that separates. Love draws you in as opposed to pushing you back. Brings people together. Unifies. When we talk about love too, we have to talk about forgiveness. Martin Luther King once said that if you are devoid of forgiveness, then you are devoid of love. Forgiveness is particularly important this time of year, given that we're celebrating the birth of Christ, who is love, and we're also just about to start into the new year of 2018. If without forgiveness, you're essentially attaching yourself to people, places, things, situations that you haven't forgiven. We've talked about this before. Emmett Fox has a great description of this, which again we've shared during other church services, but the way he analogizes it is, without forgiveness, there are these lines of energy and light which essentially attach you to the people, the places, the things which you have not forgiven. And the more lines of energy and light that you have attaching you to something or a person or a place, the harder it is for you to move, the harder it is for you to evolve. You're basically like a fly stuck in a spider's web. You cannot move. And so through forgiveness, you can cut away these lines of energy and light. I want to quote from another famous person, Maya Angelou, who many of you probably know. She says that forgiveness is the greatest gift that you can give yourself. A lot of people think of forgiveness as, well, I'm doing something for somebody else or for something. Really though, although you might be doing that, forgiveness is all about what you're doing for yourself. There's studies on this. For people who don't forgive, they tend to be angrier, they're full of resentment, perhaps envy, jealousy, and they're bound to these things, bound to these negative emotions because they haven't taken that step of forgiveness. Forgiveness, of course, takes time, energy, and effort. It's easy to say that we should all be forgiving of ourselves and forgiving of others. It's another thing to actually take action to do that. And that, of course, is one of the reasons why we do our practices. Our practices of meditation and contemplation and prayer work get us into a state of mind where we can be forgiving. If you don't forgive, you're also past oriented. Um, Many of us know that to really truly live and enjoy life, you need to live in the present moment. Um, and if you haven't forgiven, you're past oriented because you're thinking about what you said to somebody, what they said to you, what happened in the past, what occurred back then, as opposed to what's happening in the here and now. It's basically this anchor of all these people, places, and things in the past tied onto your ankle, and you're trying to drag it around. And you're really not going to make a lot of progress with that, because for most people, there's a lot of things tied onto this anchor, and it is really, really, really heavy. So forgiveness, it's this basically the same two sides of the same coin, forgiveness and love. You cannot have one without the other. Loving people are more forgiving. People who aren't loving are less forgiving. You could reverse that and say people who are forgiving tend to be more loving, tend to be more compassionate, tend to be kinder. Forgiveness is so important, right, that Christ put it in the Lord's Prayer. It's an integral part of the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, right? That's part of the Lord's Prayer. But Christ realized that the importance of forgiveness and that humanity could not advance spiritually, could not achieve enlightenment, could not wash away and remove karma without true forgiveness for themselves and for others. This is also the reason that at the last retreat we did a lot of work with Ho'oponopono, which has a lot to do with forgiveness. Forgiveness really is one of the keys, one of the great keys to spiritual advancement. The other thing to keep in mind here is what comes around goes around, right? We talk about that a lot here at the Spirit of Lotus. Essentially, what you put out, what you energize, that's what you're giving life to, and that's what you will get back in the end. So if you're putting out forgiveness towards yourself and others, what you will receive, forgiveness in return. If you're not putting out forgiveness, if you're putting out the holding on with all of your might onto that hate, into that anger, and that disappointment, and that jealousy, that envy, you're going to get that in return. Because that's what you're energizing in your life. That's what you are creating in your life. The great thing about this is you're the master of your own destiny. You hold the keys. It starts with you and ends with you. You can make a choice to forgive. You can make that choice right here and now and put in the time and the effort that it takes. And you will, in the end, receive forgiveness. So, in addition to forgiveness and love, those two intertwining concepts, we also have understanding. And we're going to talk a little bit about understanding. It's another one of these two sides of the same coin. With love, you have understanding. With understanding, you have love. Both of these are emerging, right? You cannot understand somebody or a situation fully unless you have merged with it. And depending on the amount of the merging is the amount of your understanding. This is put in songs, it's in cliches. What do they say that, have you walked a mile in their shoes? What that cliche is basically saying is, for you to understand where somebody is coming from, how they view the world, how they interpret things, you have to set yourself in their shoes and walk in their shoes to fully appreciate it. It's really easy to do that, by the way, with loved ones, with friends, with people you like, with people that you resonate with. Um, and this is talked about in the Bible. That's anybody can do that. There's no grace associated with that. There's no grace with understanding somebody that you love. There's grace with understanding your enemy. There you find true grace. Because there you really do need to put in the time and the effort to merge with them. If you don't understand somebody, or you don't understand a religion, or you don't understand a situation happening in the world, we need to step back in this time and ask ourselves why. Why does that particular person think that way? Why do they act that way? Why does what they think bother me so much? Why does the way they act bother me so much? What am I not understanding about their situation? It's through this understanding that you build bridges. It's through understanding that you can generate compassion for your fellow human being. And I want to make something clear. Understanding doesn't necessarily mean agreeing with somebody. You can understand a person's position and their viewpoint and where they're coming from and still not agree with them. You simply are understanding where they're coming from. And again, it's through that understanding that you're building these bridges. Understanding leads to compromise, right? If you don't understand and you're holding to a fixed position, if you're so concerned about being right, understanding, by the way, it's all tied into your ego. People who have to be right, who are judgmental, who draw conclusions, who assume and speculate, it's all tied into their ego because they have to be right. Or their family has to be right because their family's always said that. Or their religion has to be right because their religion's always said that. It's this ability, this strength to move away from your own ego and to merge with somebody truly that grants you this understanding, allows you to be compassionate. And we need that now in this country. All countries need that. Every country can benefit from this, from love and from understanding, from this merging. And as we go into 2018, and as we celebrate the birth of Christ, this great gift of love from our Mother, Father, God, what better time to start than now? What better time to do our best through effort, through time, through our practices, to understand people we don't agree with? To take that time, to put in that energy. And I'm sure there's, for each one of us, all kinds of different situations and different people that it's really easy to say, well, I'm right. I really do know the situation. I don't have to read more about it. Particularly with other religions. We may have been brought up in a particular religion. We may understand things a certain way. And so it has to be that way. Or even with atheists. How many of us refuse to understand their position and why they think the way they think? So, great opportunity at this time of year for love and understanding. We should all be lights upon the mountain, leading people up. You can only brighten your light if you are truly a loving person. The more loving you are, the brighter your light. The more impact that you can make. And we're all destined for this. I don't care who you are, every loving person has a little bit of darkness in them. Every really dark person has a little bit of light and love in them. And I can't remember who was saying this during one of their discourses, but you know, there's that old Indian saying, you have both of these in you. You have the bad dog and the good dog. And the one that grows stronger is the one that you feed. Feed the bad dog, you're going to be bad. You feed the good dog, you're going to be good. If your outlook on life is love, is compassion, is unity, is a realization that every single person is your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, that we all came from the same source, that we are all one with Christ, we are all one with God. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, what your skin color is, your nationality, what language you speak, all of that is irrelevant. And it is through love and understanding that we gain this appreciation, so that we can become this light. I was reading something yesterday that that struck me. It basically said people who are stuck in ego, stuck in judgment, stuck in lack of understanding, you know, they want to be the king. But through love and understanding, compassion, forgiveness, unity, those people want everybody to be kings and queens. They want everybody to be on the same level because they see everybody the same. When you look at somebody from a different place, maybe a different background in terms of finances, maybe a different nationality, what's the first thing that you see? Do you see God? Do you see your spiritual brother and sister? Or do you see something else? This is the time to take stock of that, to take a step back, look at ourselves, and how do we see the world? How do we see other people? How can we be more loving? How can we be more understanding, forgiving, compassionate? Really, how can we be more like the Christ? When we do our rainbow meditation, we talk about the Christ being this pure white light, this purity from the Godhead. This is the glue that binds creation together, that links us together. It's this love that links us together. So that's what I would encourage everybody to contemplate, meditate on today. Start now. There's no better time to start now. Through the upcoming week, Christmas tomorrow, the upcoming week, and mold yourself into love, into understanding, and the impact that you will make on the world, on humanity, will be tremendous. You will essentially be realizing your birthright. And every single person is capable of doing this if they put in the time and the effort. So much love to all of you. Merry Christmas. And we have about 10 minutes for a deep level meditation.